Hello everyone. In this channel or in this video you will learn how to create a jQuery Owl Carousel within SharePoint framework. In previous videos I have explained you how to add a jQuery with Bootstrap and fontawesome. In this you would extend furthermore to use one of the jQuery plugin, a famous jQuery plugin which is the Owl Carousel. The end product would look like the above, the screenshot which you see here in my slide. You would have a carousel with two pagination and you would have some property pane as well. I will go through how to add those property pane and customize some of the properties of the Owl Carousel as well. So let me start creating a SPFX project. So before that, these are the extra packages which you would need for executing the project. There are required and the optional. Required, from the previous video we would learn how to enable the jQuery and Bootstrap. I would follow the same step. Extra one package which I would install is the Owl Carousel. Optional package is the fontawesome, which in case if you want to use it, you can use it, or you can safely ignore that command as well. Let me start running the command. So I'm opening the PowerShell script as usual, and I would follow my usual command, which is the yo command with multiple parameters. Let me use this one. Okay, so this is the parameter which I usually use to run. Solution name is Owl Carousel and the webpart name. It is a webpart which would query from pnpjs. That's it. So let me run this and complete all the packages along with that. So I have created the SPFX project now. Now I will run all the packages one by one to enable jQuery and the Bootstrap plus the pnpjs. So all the commands I have mentioned in the description or in the full source code in the GitHub. So you can follow those packages and install all of them. For detailed instruction, you can check my previous video on how to install and enable the jQuery for Bootstrap and the fontawesome. So at this stage, I have finished running all the packages except the Owl Carousel and did the setup of jQuery and the Bootstrap. You can see here in the config file, I have added the jQuery and the Bootstrap dependencies, and in the main web part, I have imported the jQuery and the Bootstrap, and I have even included the Bootstrap CSS. I have also included the pnpjs, the reference here, if you see the reference, and once I finish those reference, I added the on init for pnpjs to enable the pnpjs for the current context. And for the jQuery, I have added a skeleton of document ready. On top of it, if you check out my previous video on pnpjs, I have created another class which is the animals HTML class, the TypeScript class. I have imported that class as well. You can see this class here. I created another class, animals html.ts, imported the pnpjs and created my types for the animal taxonomy, which I explained you clearly on the last video, pnpjs. And I have created the organism class which has the getList method, only the getList method now. GetList data will just call the pnp of my list and get the data. And this is the skeleton which I have. I have not added any HTML template till now, but this is the HTML template which is being applied inside the main jQuery. Inside the main template. So you can see this template which is binded from the animals HTML. So at this stage the skeleton is ready. So now I'm going to run the npm Owl Carousel and start coding on the setup. So now I would run this command. So once I run this command, it would install the Owl Carousel. I think I fixed. Okay, forget about the error. because I missed the L. Okay, now it should go through. Yes. So the npm install Owl Carousel. Let me go through the Owl Carousel here on my code. This is the website for the Owl Carousel, which is the famous one. Most of the jQuery most of the jQuery developers would use that. And you can go to the GitHub and get all the details of the Owl Carousel here. They have the npm command. I'm just using the command which is from the GitHub. And you can see the demos as well, these parameters, and you can even have the source code of what they are actually doing it here. So this is the kind of a HTML I'm going to produce inside my SPFX project. So hopefully, yes, it is done. So now, with the carousel being installed properly, what I would do is I need to configure the carousel to be used within the project. So for that, you should use the require command instead of the import. So usually the jQuery plugin, you can always use this command, require command, instead of the import. I tried import, but it doesn't work. And I want to have some of the CSS comes along with the carousel. So they have two CSS, which is the main CSS and the themed CSS. I would just import that. So these two are the CSS which is already been used within the carousel. So I import those two carousel as well, the themes and the CSS. So now I'm going to program for my view. So let me go back to the animals HTML, and in that I would add the skeleton first. So this is the skeleton which I'm adding now. So basically what it does is I create a container class, which is the top level class from the bootstrap, class row, which is also from the bootstrap, and this is the container for my Owl Carousel. Animals card is the ID. So later the jQuery would use this ID to inject the dynamic HTML inside, and this is the class, predefined class for the Owl Carousel. And get data list is already there. I'm going to add few more methods to form the HTML. The first method is the get all organism method. Okay, get all organism method. Later let me copy the method, which I would explain it later what is that parameter does. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is get all organism method is the one which would be called from the main web part, and in turn it would request all the data, and finally it called the render organism list. So the render organism list will get the data and render it in the HTML format. So what I do is the render organism list, I would copy it from my code. Okay, this is the render method. So basically in the render method, what I'm trying to do is I create the template HTML, and this HTML will be replaced with certain dynamic values from the written from the pnpjs. These are the one which will be replaced. I have a specific keyword which will be replaced here, and when the pnpjs returns a set of array, I would iterate through the array and then form my carousel format of HTML. That's it. So once it is done, then I would call the HTML, all the jQuery plugin which would form the carousel and with some parameters. So if you check the code here, I have used most of the places the props.item count and all the properties, and these properties comes from the pnpj part properties. So now let's discuss about these properties. Let me go back to the view and then go back to my slide. If you go back to my slide, you see here these are the property pane which I am using. The first property is the style property, which I get from either basic or the responsive, and the second one is about whether you want to center the content or you just leave it, and the third one URL hash and number of item count. So this comes from the property pane. So basically I'm going to use that within the SPFX. So let me go to the code. So if you go back to the code, what I'm trying to do is go back to your main class, and inside that you would have spfx-owlcarousel property props. So this property is the one which I'm going to pass through in all the part. So let me copy this. So to use that, I have to import from the main web part. So the import statement would be like this. Import iprops alone from SPFX web part. That's it. So this is the property props which I'm going to use inside within this class. So it would have several properties which we would add, and these properties are passed as a parameter. So now when I go back to the main web part class, what I should do is in the document read method, I should call arg-html.get all organisms of the I property. The I property is the one which is this one, and which has the parameter. Let me find out what is the value which has to pass in. So basically in any web part, the properties can be accessed, the panel properties can be accessed using this method, this dot properties. So this would return you the I SPFX-owlcarousel property props, this whole class, the interface. So you can make use of this interface inside your class. So I'm just passing this property so that I can make use of those values, and based on that the controls will be inherited. So now I'm going to run through the property pane, setting up the properties for the Owl Carousel. So now if you see here, there is only one property which is declared, the property text field, and this property text field is being used within here. So property pane, it has a pages plus the group, mandatory group, and a header. Within a group you would create multiple controls to get the values, and finally these values will be saved within this interface, which is the SPFX-owlcarousel interface. So you'll have to declare a variable to hold that property value. First to declare the types and instantiate that in the group. So 3 steps you should follow. That's it, and simple. And if I try running now without setting up any properties, no browser, this would just show the skeleton of the web part, because I'm not wiring up. I didn't wire those code yet. So once I did, it would show it. So for now there would be only one description property, and the web part would be empty. So let me fire up the workbench once this completes. This is the workbench, and my web part name is SPFX. So I have the SharePoint icon. Okay, so this is just the heading which comes out. There is no content at the down, and if you see here, this is the default properties which is shown for any web part. it comes along with the projects. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some code to change these. So first step is to import all the types. So probably I would use most of the types. So I would just first import all the types within the properties. So these are the types which comes with along with the property pane. I'm going to use the choice field, checkbox field, group, and the slider, and the toggle, and the horizontal line. Except the drop down, I'm going to use most of them. And you need to declare variable for all the properties to hold the value, so that you can use this is the property which should be used when you say this dot properties dot, and these are the variables. So for that I have 3 variables. I'm going to remove the description, so I would just use 3 variables. This is a straightforward declaration of the variable. These are the, let me remove this, I don't need anymore. And these are the properties with the variable which will be hold. So the style would be a number, and URL hash will be boolean, whether it is enabled or yes, which would be a toggle button. And choice center will be a checkbox, again a boolean will be a checkbox. And item count, number of items to be shown at the first level, which would be more of the count. So I have the variable. You can, this basically within by default inside a project, everything comes from if you break down local, it comes from the my strings. So this is the place where they configure your property default values, and they have a multilingual setup where you can specify what is the description name, group name, and group field. I'm not going to go through deep into it. I'm going to follow just a simple flat approach. So what I do is I directly change the value here. I can just say any value which is so this would be the, this is the place where the description would appear. What I do is please select the carousel style to display the animals. So that is the description I'm going to do, and the group name would be maybe I'll just put it as carousel styles. So this is the group name, and I'm going to change all these fields. I want only my own fields with the property. So what I do is first I would initialize. So this is the first property, which is the styles property, and basic, and the responsive, and the responsive by default is checked. And the second property which I'm going to do is just add some horizontal line just to differentiate from the checkbox, and this is the checkbox property. This checkbox property pane will be named as center text and will be checked by default because I'm going to center the carousel. And next I'm going to add the toggle property. The toggle property would have on and off. You can specify whatever the text which should be shown when on text and off text, and this is the URL hash. So whether you want to hash the URL, so this is one of the simple feature which Owl Carousel gives you. So I'm just going to make it configurable. And items count is the number of item to be shown initially when you load. It is a slider, so maximum is 10, minimum is 2, and you can step one by one, and it would show the value at the right side, and the default value is 4. So I've added all the properties plus the property values and the types. So all these have been done, and now I save them. When I save them, it should appear. Yeah. So now when I refresh, and once I refresh and select the edit, see here the description is here, the carousel styles, and this is the radio option, and this is the checkbox, and URL enable disable, and this is a slider max is 10. So now I want to make this non-reactive because I'm changing multiple properties, and also I don't want to flicker every time when you change the property, and if you suddenly change it, things might go wrong. So usually I will make it non-reactive. To make it non-reactive, I just follow one simple step. Just add the function which says make it disable the reactive. So just go here and change it to reactive. That's it. So once you change that to reactive and then save it, what it does is, let me wait for it to complete, compile and build. Okay, now it is ready. Let me refresh, and once it is refreshed, okay, you would see the apply button because I made it non-reactive, and whenever I change it, the apply will be enabled. So only then the property is applied, and it will be applied here. So now the basic skeleton of all the web part is done. Now I'm going to enable the code to fetch the value from the web part. So remember, I have written the animals html.ts, and this is the top skeleton. This is where the jQuery would be injected, and I've added all the code. The render organism list is the one which I'm going to use, which already passes all the properties. So whatever the property you change, all the values are held within props. So now this is the template of each animal HTML, and I'm iterating through the pnpjs result and replacing the text. And this is the place where I'm instantiating the, let me uncomment it. This is the place I am instantiating the Owl Carousel. So if you see here, the jQuery will add the Owl Carousel content, and I'm declaring the type, which is any. This is the TypeScript syntax. You should always declare, to do any jQuery plugin, just declare it as any type and get the HTML tag where you want to modify for the jQuery. Once you get that as a tag, I'm just finding the tag using the class name, assigning it to one variable, which is any variable. So once you assign it to any variable, and later use that variable and call that type, which you have declared using the require statement. So that's it, and pass all the parameters. In my case, initially I'm checking whether it is a basic style or the responsive style. If it is a basic style, I just instantiate like this. If it is responsive, there are so many other parameters you have to pass, which is like for a mobile, it would show only one. For a tablet, it would show 2. And for desktop, it would show by default 4. You cannot change the count property for a desktop. You can still do it. It's just a matter of assigning the property. Other properties, I'm using the choice center, passing it to the plugin. Also the item count, URL hash. So everything is straightforward because all the properties are already stored there. So now everything is ready. I'm going to run it. Let me check whether it works. I'm waiting for the build to be over. Yes. So now when I refresh, it should come with the default value, which is the responsive and with 4. Oops. Okay. Okay. So this is the carousel which comes out of it has saved the property. So I'm going to make it centered and maybe responsive or basic, and the count is 4. Disable. Okay. Now I'm going to apply that. You see here, that's how it works in. So the values will be like 1 2 3 4. 4 will be, it will try to show 4. That is the count 4. Okay, this center property, let me apply. Okay, so I think it is working in a reverse order. If I don't enable, it makes it center, but if I check it, it is not. But anyway, you can program it in a different way to do that. So every time now it becomes like first item it becomes shows 4, and when you move it, it becomes another 4. And these properties are working again. Okay, I can increase it to 5. Maybe I apply. Okay, 5 item. It is congested, but anyway, the properties are working. It would try to show 5 at any point. Okay, so that's how about the Owl Carousel. You can start using the Owl Carousel in the way which you want in, and you can even deploy into your SharePoint and play around. So remember to subscribe to my channel, and always check out the description. I would post my GitHub URL of the full source code. You can download and play around with that, and you can extend that as well. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please subscribe or like my video if you like it. Thank you.